All right, welcome back. We are here once again discussing The Shooter on the Grassy Knoll, the Jack Valenti Files, Part 4. So, yesterday we were going over the files in reference to the credit, background, and criminal history of Jack Valenti and his family. We spoke about his father, Joe Valenti, Giuseppe Valenti. We spoke about his mother, Josephine DeGeorge, who came from the Houston mob DeGeorge family. His father, obviously, a Valenti, related to Umberto Valenti and Andrea Valenti down in Tampa and all those guys. So, we're just going to pick up from where we left off. On page 112 of 583 of Jack Valenti's document, on December 16th, 1963, redacted Clerk Records Division, Houston Police Department, and Lieutenant Redacted, Identification Bureau, Harris County Sheriff's Office, advised they could not locate any information identifiable with appointee or wife, or with appointee's parent, sister, and former brother-in-law, Vincent. That relationship to Vincent, I can't harp on enough. On December 16, 1963, redacted Clerk Identification Division, Houston Police Department, advised that she located a fingerprint card on one Joe Valenti, which revealed that he was received at the Texas State Penitentiary on November 2nd, 1937, from Harris County, Texas, where he had been sentenced to 2 years for felony theft. If you'll recall from yesterday's show, Joe Valenti gets busted basically embezzling money from the county in which he was a tax collector. I feel there's more to the story, but I just don't know what, and I don't know where to begin to try to find out. A couple interesting things about Joe Valenti. He was only 5'3" tall and 106 pounds. It's pretty goddamn short, isn't it? It's pretty goddamn short. Hair black, eyes brown, complexion fair. Tattoo of hands on his inner forearm with the letters JV. According to this fingerprint card, Valenti was discharged from Harlem State Penitentiary on February 18th, 1939. Redacted informed that she was unable to locate additional information on Jack Joseph Valenti, and that she could locate no information identifiable with appointee's wife, mother, sister, or former brother-in-law. On December 13th, 1963, redacted, Dun & Bradstreet, Inc., credit reporting agency, advised she had a report dated October 4th, 1963, on Weekly and Valenti, Inc., 2706 Richmond Avenue, Houston, an advertising agency. She said the officers were shown to be Welton Weekly CEO and President, Jack J. Valenti, Executive Vice President, and redacted. 11 employees. The directors were said to be the officers. She said a summary stated that financial information had been declined. Condition of the concern was believed to be generally satisfactory, with debt retired promptly and volume and profits reportedly increasing. Redacted declined all financial information on October 3rd, 1963, but the report stated present condition was believed to be somewhat as follows. Cash, low five figures, accounts receivable, $50,000 plus, accounts payable, $20,000 plus, accrued expense, $2,500, and worth $35,000 plus. Rent and fire insurance coverages were declined. Redacted did state that volume thus far in 1963 was showing a 20% increase over the like period in 1962. The concern maintained a satisfactory account at one local bank. This concern was said by the report to operate as a general advertising agency, handling about 18 accounts, 9 of them local. Work is also done through another agency for one major oil company on a fixed fee plus commission basis. Collections are made generally as expenses accrue. The company rents space in a 2-story brick building in a semi-commercial section. The report gave history of this company as being a Texas corporation chartered on April 5th, 1962, capital of 100,000 shares at $1 per value each. Amount of capital paid in was not learned. October 3rd, 1963, Weekly stated he and Valenti each owned 50% of the outstanding capital stock. This company, according to the report, started in 1953, as was a partnership of J.J. Valenti and Weldon Weekly. Was said to be born in Redacted in Texas. From 1938 to 1952, he was employed by Humboldt Oil and Refining Company, most recently as a sales promotion manager of the Southeastern Division, Houston area. The following investigation was conducted by S.A. Redacted, Special Agent Redacted, at Huntsville, Texas, December 17, 1963. Redacted, Chief of Records and Identification, Texas Department of Corrections, advised that Joe Valenti, true name Joseph Valenti, that's not his true name. His true name is Giuseppe Valenti. TDC number 86594 was sentenced at Harris County November 2nd, 1937, to serve 2 years for felony embezzlement, 3 counts. He was discharged from TDC on February 18, 1939. Joseph Valenti was described as a white male American born June 3, 1892, at Houston, Texas, 5 foot 3 inches, 106 pounds. Black-gray hair, brown eyes. The following relatives were listed by Valenti as of 1937. Parents, Jake Valenti and Laura Graffato Valenti. Wife, Josephine DeGeorge Valenti. Son, Jack Joseph Valenti. And daughter, Lorraine Valenti, goes on to become Lorraine Valenti Dinerstein. So, if you'll recall, when we went over the list of files the FBI had on Jack Valenti's father, Joe Valenti, there were like 40 or 50 of them, including everything from national security issues to treason to falsifying citizenship, okay? But here, they're whitewashing that, and they're just stating that he was born in Houston, Texas in 1892. So yeah, there's some cover-up going on here. The FBI is not stupid. They know how to interpret their own files, right? So obviously none of that seems to matter. December 20th, 1963, titled Jack Joseph Valenti Character Special Inquiry. Reference report of Special Agent George D. Reimers, dated December 20th, 63 at Houston. All sources, except any listed below whose identities are concealed in reference communications, have furnished reliable information in the past. T1, that's an informant number, by nature of his business, has occasion to know the backgrounds, employments, and relationships of numerous personalities in Houston society who accumulate considerable wealth. He also has opportunity to observe persons engaged in gambling and similar illegal activities. T2, by nature of his employment, is able to develop information concerning persons in connection with redacted, long redaction, as well as numerous persons who wager large sums of money and who are aware of gambling activities in the Houston area. So they're outlining the backgrounds of 2 of the informants who provided information on Jack Valenti. All right, December 20th, 63, titled Jack Joseph Valenti Special Inquiry. Synopsis: residences at Austin, Texas of redacted confirmed. So who was living in Austin? That was his Mary Margaret Wiley's parents were living in Austin, right? So that's what that is. All these redactions are in reference to Mary Margaret Wiley's parents. Same thing down below. Yeah, so it's for each parent and maybe her sister or brother or something like that. Her father was a scumbag too. He embezzled a bunch of money, went to jail also. All right. At that time, redacted. God damn. She added that Mr. Wiley passed away about a year previously. She was not aware of the present residences of redacted or redacted. Must be talking about Jack Valenti and his wife. Long redaction followed by the University of Texas Student Housing, Austin, Texas, advised on December 18, 63, that redacted, his wife, and 4 children resided at... okay, so... This is more connection to Mary Margaret Wiley's family. She added that the redacted are missionaries in Paraguay representing the Christian church and were presently home on furlough. She added that George Wiley Sr. died in early 63 and she was not familiar with the other probably members of the Wiley family. So this is probably talking about Mary Margaret Wiley's brothers or family members other than her father, because he's dead. All right, so Redacted Texas confirmed the residence of Redacted at Redacted on December 18th, 1963. She stated that the Wileys were on furlough from their missionary endeavor with the Christian Church in Paraguay. She advised that she was well acquainted with them, but did not know Redacted, and Redacted. So they're interviewing people who were familiar with the Wiley family, who was, remember, Lyndon Johnson's lifelong love, his longtime secretary, who then he knocks up. Jack Valenti has to take her to get a backroom abortion, and then Jack Valenti ends up marrying her when she gets pregnant again. Okay, so just so we're on the same page here. Credit checks of all these people. Stuff is kind of irrelevant. George E. Wiley Sr., 3506, Cherry Lane, wife, Redacted, deceased April 1963, according to a newspaper clipping dated April 1863 from the Austin American. A file concerning Redacted was located in the student files, reflecting that he was a University of Texas student in 1947 and that he re-entered the university in January 1961. His occupation was listed as missionary in the United Christian Society. His credit rating, last checked in June 63, was satisfactory. So this is the family of Mary Margaret Wiley. So this stuff is kind of I mean, is there some kind of weird connection between the family of Mary Margaret Wiley and the Valentis on the back end? Who knows? Seems like all of these relationships you find that center around Washington are incestuous in some way, shape, or form. All right, so moving on. Title: Jack Joseph Valenti, dated 12/23/63. Character: Special Inquiry. Synopsis: Appointee, presently Special Consultant to the President. No record Office of Emergency Planning indicating that appointee has ever served in any capacity. No record of appointee or wife. Credit Bureau, Metropolitan Police Department, MPD, U.S. Park Police. Background information set forth from Civil Service Commission. No record appointee, House Un-American Activities Committee, or Office of Special Investigations. Appointee's wife granted a Q clearance. With Atomic Energy Commission, has continued active with the Office of the Vice President. Okay, so what this is referring to is Jack Valenti has no special clearances from the past that are relevant to his employment, but his wife, Mary Margaret Wiley, did have a Q clearance appointed to her from the Atomic Energy Commission because as the secretary of the vice president, she was in on some classified stuff, so she had to be given that clearance. There's nothing conspiratorial there. Details at Washington, D.C. Employment on December 17th, 1963. Redacted Personnel Office, the White House. Office advised S.A. Paul Doherty. The appointee entered on duty December 5th, 1963 as a special consultant to the president and is presently so employed. Okay, so Jack Valenti scooped up on November 22nd, 1963 after he shoots the president and hops onto Air Force One. But he does not have he's not officially an employee of anybody until December 5th. So we got, a 2-week period there that he's just kind of hanging out in the White House. On December 18th, 63, Redacted Personal Assistant Personnel Office, OEP, Executive Office of the President, advised Joseph Spiker she could locate no record indicating that the appointee had ever served in any capacity with the OEP or its predecessor organizations. A security file for the appointee at OEP reviewed on December 18th, 63 by S.A. Spiker reveals that in 1961, he was under consideration for possible appointment to the Executive Reserve of Civil and Defense Mobilization as a Congressional Relations Officer in Region 5, Denton, Texas. The OEP security file reveals the appointee was born on September 5th, 21 at Houston, Texas. The file contained no additional pertinent information. So let me reread this. The security file, he was under consideration for possible appointment to the Executive Reserve of Civil and Defense Mobilization. This sounds like some fucking backroom intelligence organization, doesn't it? It just rings of some nonsense. Executive Reserve of Civil and Defense Mobilization. This is, god damn it, I fucking hate the level of bureaucracy our government engages in. It's fucking disgusting. On December 1863, redacted security clerk, security office, Office of Civil Defense, Department of Defense advised S.A. Spiker the only record on the appointee she could locate was a card record which indicated that a security file had been forwarded to OEP on April 13th, 1962. On December 18th, 1963, redacted personnel management specialist, personnel office, Office of Civil Defense, Department of Defense advised S.A. Spiker she could locate no record indicating the appointee ever served in any capacity with the Office of Civil Defense. She advised her records do not show that he had at one time been under consideration for possible service as an executive reservist, Region 5, Denton, Texas, but never been appointed. Redacted explained the fact that the appointee was not appointed to the executive reserve is not significant since it is the practice to check a number of people for any proposed appointment, and some individuals' proposed appointment, when contacted, have to decline for one reason or another. Credit and police agencies. On December 16, 1963, IC redacted caused a search to be made of the files of the Credit Bureau, Incorporated, Washington, D.C., and was advised the files contained no record for the appointee. Or redacted, must be referring to family members. On December 16, 1963, IC determined that no record was contained in the Metropolitan Police Department files concerning the appointee or redacted, must be his wife. It is to be noted that at all times, an indefinite number of unidentified records are out of file and not available for review. On December 16, 1963, IC redacted searched the files of the United States Park Police and no record was found concerning the appointee or redacted. On December 17, 1963, the appointee's file was reviewed by the Civil Service Commission, which reveals he was appointed. The appointee was born September 5, 21 at Houston, Texas. He completed a standard Form 86 on June 19, 1961 for the position with the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization, Denton, Texas, with the following background information was set forth. And then we have some background information here, nothing we haven't already covered. Again, military service. Let's cover the dates he provided then. U.S. Army Air Corps, 1942 to 45. Entered 3/12/44. Honorable demobilization, 10/16/45 as a first lieutenant. But remember, he didn't even get out of his fucking training until March of 45, right? And then he goes off to the war for like 2-3 months. And then into 9/20/38, the Horowitz Theater, Houston, Texas. Yeah, I just can't help but think that there's a connection there between that, the Texas Theater, and the Alabama Theater, where Raoul is known to have frequented. So a lot of this background stuff, when I really, the first time went over it, I was really just digging for contradictions, anything I could poke a hole in, because obviously his name is not his name. They keep circling the fucking missing middle name between Joseph and Valenti, indicating that there's a name missing, right? So a lot of the background stuff I've gone over time and time again, just looking for any hole that I could poke in it, because I know there's lies all over the place here. All right, so what do we have here? Dated 12/30/63 to Director, Special Agent in Charge, Las Vegas. Jack Joseph Valenti, SPI, Re-Butel to Houston, dated December 26th last. Plane manifests for June 62. National Airlines no longer available. Houston reservation representative, Tropicana Hotel, Las Vegas, has record of reservation for Mr. and Mrs. Jack Valenti for June 3/62. Recalls reservation made by Valenti himself. Also record available that redacted and redacted had reservations to share apartment at Tropicana. June 3/62. This reservation was independent to Valenti's. Aha. So who are they talking about? They're probably talking about Joe Lucia and his wife, I think her name was Barbara, who paid for Jack Valenti's honeymoon, right? So they know that the Lucias paid for the fucking airlines and paid for the hotel, the Tropicana, which was started by Meyer Lansky. It was the first of the big mob hotels, followed by the Flamingo and then the Thunderbird. Love the history of Mob Vegas. But yeah, so they know that the fucking mob paid for Valenti's honeymoon. They don't seem to do anything about it, though. Not until 1966. Redacted, presently in Acapulco, Mexico, to return to Houston January 2, 64. Valenti's personal bank account, American Bank and Trust Company, Houston reviewed $500 in cash withdrawn May 31, 62. No other indications found of checks to cover wedding trip. So Jack Valenti didn't pay a goddamn penny for his wedding trip. Somebody else did. Valenti found to own 20% of Jamaica Beach Inc. and 10% of Jamaica Corporation, both holdings presently in trust to redacted. Valenti has resigned as director of both corporations. Valenti was director San Jacinto Savings and Loan Association from April 56 to October of 58. Was dropped for reason of merger and limitations to number of directors. Has no financial interest this time in San Jacinto Savings and Loans. For information of Las Vegas, confidential information received that redacted former AR subject, Houston office. Former AR subject. What the fuck does that mean? For information of Las Vegas, confidential informant received that redacted former AR subject. Obviously somebody who's being investigated by the FBI. It's Joe Lucia, but I don't know the reference AR. Page 3, Houston will interview redacted upon return to USA, January 264. So they're just trying to figure out and make sure that Joseph Lucia didn't pay for Jack Valenti's honeymoon and wedding, but of course he did. I wonder what the relationship was between Lyndon Johnson and Joe Lucia. There had to be one. I mean, it's just it's inevitable. All right. Urgent 123163 to director from Special Agent in Charge, Las Vegas. Jack Joseph Valenti, SPI, Houston teletype dated December 30 last. Records, Tropicana Hotel, Las Vegas, reviewed this date. Jack Valenti, 3777 Norfolk, Houston, Texas, stayed at Tropicana Hotel from June 3, 1962 until June 7, 1962. Party of 2. Entire bill of $390. Complimentary, authorized by one Benjamin Jaffe, owner of record, Tropicana Hotel. Okay, so Benjamin Jaffe are located in the ownership records of the Tropicana. So don't have much else to say about that. Houston teletype to Bureau December 30 last. Johnny Goyen advised January 2 instant that he is a close friend of Valenti. Recommends him in every possible regard. Describes him as a loyal citizen and of high moral character. Goyen advises he and Jack, together with, and I don't have the partner names here, accompanied Valenti and his bride to Las Vegas, Nevada in early June of 1963, where they stayed several days at the Tropicana Hotel. Wait a minute, is that 63 date wrong? Yeah, the 63 date is wrong. It was 62. 62. My apologies for having bad notes. Where they stayed several days at the Tropicana Hotel. These companions traveled by air, each paying for their own air transportation, and each paid their own bills at the hotel, although some of the hotel services may have been gratis. Goyen explained that Las Vegas hotels frequently will compliment some services to guests known to them, and he cannot recall if this happened in connection with the trip or not. Goyen stated he does not know what Lucia gave Valenti for a wedding gift, but it was not a trip to Las Vegas. I'm sure. All right, so moving on. From W.V. Cleveland, subject Jack Joseph Valenti. Once again with the circle between Joseph Valenti indicating the missing name. Malachi. Background, request received 12/12/63 from White House for investigation of Valenti, who is special consultant to the president. He is a 42-year-old advertising executive from Houston, Texas, and a close friend of the president. His wife was secretary to President Johnson during the latter's Senate career. Results of investigation. Persons interviewed had no question re Valenti's character, reputation, or trust, and that they recommended him for a position of trust. In 62, an informant furnished information indicating that Joseph Lucia, bookmaker and gambler in Houston, had been a longtime associate of appointee and paid all or part of wedding expenses and allegedly had engaged in a sexual activity with appointee over a number of years. When contacted during current inquiries, the informant stated he has no positive knowledge that the above statements were accurate. It was only what he was told. Another informant advised during current inquiries that although Valenti and Lucia are close personal friends, he knows for a positive fact that Lucia did not contribute money to Valenti's wedding or his wedding trip to Las Vegas, Nevada. And then there's a signature redacted. Additional inquiries are being conducted re the above. Investigation to disclose Valenti's father and father-in-law. This is it. father-in-law each served 2 years in the Texas State Pen. His father was sentenced in 1937 for embezzling approximately $175 in county funds, and his father-in-law in 1931 for embezzling $40,000 from a bank where he was employed. Goddamn, 40 grand in 1931 is like $1 million fucking dollars today. All right. Memorandum to Mr. Evans, re Jack Joseph Valenti. We conducted an applicant investigation in December 1957. In January 1958, re Mary Margaret Wiley. She was generally recommended but redacted. This is in reference to her receiving that Q clearance because she was the secretary of the vice president, or she was the secretary of the vice president when he was still in the Senate. So, action that attached summary memo be furnished to the White House in view of the fact that allegation that Lucia paid for all or part of the wedding and flights to Las Vegas for Valenti has not yet been substantiated. The information is being included in the transmittal letter and does not appear in the summary memo. All right, more biographical data on Jack Joseph Valenti. I really see the need to go over all this stuff again. Although whenever I see all like lists of his like employment and background and military, like I always look for contradictions, you know. All right, so employment. Mr. Valenti was employed as an usher at the Texas Theater, Houston, Texas, from June 1937 to September 1938. Now, it says here the Texas Theater, and this is the second time it's referenced as the Texas Theater in Houston, but I do believe it was the Horowitz Theater. I do not believe it was called the Texas Theater run by Mr. Horowitz. I believe it was the Horowitz Theater because that's how it's initially referenced. And actually, I did a little research on it, and there was a chain called the Horowitz Theater, so this, I believe, is just a mistake. It got me really excited when I fucking read this, that Jack Valenti was an usher at the Texas Theater, but that is not the case. I don't believe it. I believe that is just a mistake. From September 38th to December of 62, with the exception of the period he served in the military service and during his attendance at Harvard University Grad School of Business Administration, Boston, Massachusetts, he was employed by Humble Oil and Refining Company, Houston, Texas. He was successfully employed as a mail boy, assistant sales promotion manager, and sales promotion manager of the Southeastern Division. Then I catch some little mistakes here. Like it'll say here, like the last paragraph of this page says, in January 63, Mr. Valenti and One Weldon Weekly organized the firm of Weekly and Valenti, Incorporated, an advertising agency in Houston. But that's not correct. I mean, that was 1953, not 63. All right, so more background stuff on Valenti. Stuff we've already covered, talking about his military service. Let me read this paragraph just so I can show you what my opinions are on some of this stuff. Mr. Valenti enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps Reserve. So is the Army Air Corps Reserve, is that the fucking Air Force? Because I've seen it referenced that he was in the Air Force. And then here later on in this paragraph, it says the Air Force Officers Reserve Corps. Okay, whenever you hear the word reserve, just think intelligence. That's all you need to know. Being in the reserve gives you the excuse to go about living your normal life, but whenever they need you, you can go hop into action and then you can say it's because of my reserve duty, right? Not because I'm in the fucking CIA. Mr. Valenti enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps Reserve on March 18th, 42, and he entered on active duty in the United States Army Air Corps on February 17th, 1943. He was appointed a second lieutenant March 12th of 1944, and he was honorably released from active duty as a first lieutenant October 16th, 1945. He served in the United States Army Air Officers Reserve Corps from October 17th, 45 to September 18th, 47, and in the United States Air Force Officers Reserve Corps from September 19th, 47 to April 1st of 1953. His service record indicates he was a pilot, and he received several decorations, including the Distinguished Flying Cross. Yeah, I don't buy any of that. I don't buy any of that shit whatsoever. This is obfuscation for his work in intelligence. Marital status, goes over all this stuff again. Mr. Valenti is married to the former secretary of the president. They have a minor daughter, Courtney, and their residence is at 2938 San Felipe Road, Houston, Texas, since November 1963. Mr. Valenti has been in Washington, D.C., where he's seeking housing accommodations for his family. All right, so the next couple pages are nothing more than summaries of the interviews that we've gone over the past couple days, right? So what are the major issues with Jack Valenti? Number one, he's hanging out with Joseph Lucia, right? Joseph Lucia was a known mobster and hoodlum. This has come up a bunch of times. He also has been alleged to have homosexual relationships with people, right? So this is the big thing that they're looking into Valenti. Was Valenti gay? Was he banging dudes? There was some suspicion that he and McGeorge Bundy were having an affair, a sexual affair, that an informant brought that information forward. So yeah, that and the connection to the bookmaker and the Houston mob. But see, just the fact that his mother and father are mobsters who have an easily provable background with the mafia, that should be enough to disqualify him right away. So, but what we should be able to tell from this FBI investigation into Jack Valenti's background is that it's a cover job, right? They're finding out all the dirt so they know what to cover up. But eventually, Jack's got to go. And Jack's got to go for a very good reason. In 1966, he gets ousted in connection to Vincent Calderon Jr., who we talked about already. All right, so let me see where I can pick this up. Here's an interesting one. William A. Morgan, Houston, Texas, former advertising manager of Continental Oil Company, now retired, advised he has known Mr. Valenti on a social and business basis for about 10 years. He said Mr. Valenti is a person of high moral character. He has a high standing in the business world. Mr. Valenti's ability and personality are excellent, and he has never heard any adverse information concerning him. He recommended Mr. Valenti for a position of trust. So William Morgan, who pops up in Clayshaw's notebook. William Morgan, who, again, is connected to all the oil people down in Dallas and Houston. Member of the Dallas Petroleum Club with George de Mohrenschildt, who George de Mohrenschildt, by the way, worked for Humble Oil at the same exact time that Jack Valenti did when he was a teenager. And then some, right? Yeah, all these people knew each other. All these connections are ever present. All right, Jack Joseph Valenti, 2 lines redacted, an advertising firm in Houston, Texas, advised he has known Mr. Valenti on a social and business basis for approximately 8 years. He said he would consider Mr. Valenti a top-notch person from all points of view. He described Mr. Valenti as a very dynamic and capable person, adding that he knows absolutely nothing unfavorable concerning him. He recommended Mr. Valenti for a position of trust. Redacted at International Business Machines Corporation. Okay, so in 1963, IBM and the CIA were balls deep with each other. International Business Machines Corporation, White Plains, New York, advised he has been acquainted with Mr. Valenti since 1946. They attended Harvard University Graduate School of Business Administration at the same time, and he has maintained a close relationship with Mr. Valenti since their graduation in 1948. He stated he's also acquainted with Mary Margaret, and he has the highest regard for her. He stated nothing of an unfavorable nature has been brought to his attention concerning Valenti's character, reputation, loyalty, and associates, and he said Mr. Valenti is completely dedicated to the United States form of government, and he unhesitatingly recommends Mr. Valenti for a position involving national security of the United States. So, we got more associates of Valenti going off to work with known CIA partner corporations, right? International Business Machines, IBM. All right, closing paragraph. 18 additional persons, including social and professional acquaintances, were interviewed, and they furnished favorable comments concerning Mr. Valenti's character, reputation, loyalty, and associates. Several of these persons stated they are aware of Mr. Valenti's social association with Joseph Lucia. Those who know Mr. Valenti well recommended him for a position of trust and confidence. So, do you see what they're doing here? Like, they're talking to all these people who are saying great things about him. Nonetheless, he's made bad investments, and he's done gambling deals with Joe Lucia, who's a known hoodlum and mobster in Houston, right? So this is just whitewashing him for the position. But the funny thing is, like, this investigation, as we'll see, it goes on for years. Like, for 3 years that he's in the White House, this investigation is persistent. It never, like, actually completed. All right, more credit and arrest checks, more agency checks. Nothing popping up in any of the government databases. And, yeah. So, I think I'm going to call it an early day today. I got some things going on here in town I'm going to get out and go do. I just wanted to hop in and check up with everybody and continue along with this long, drudging, dry series of documents. So, all right, I will be back on Monday, and make sure to tune in for day 0 tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern. And you guys have a great afternoon.